it seems to me like if you have a brand that becomes sullied in terms of its image, one of the things you want to do is change the face of the brand. I remember one of the very first classified documents that WikiLeaks obtained and disclosed, before anyone really knew who they were. There was in 2006, 2007, a big movement in Western Europe against the war in Afghanistan. And several Western European governments that supported the war in Afghanistan, had troops supporting the U.S. mission there, lost in their elections and in favor of parties that were in favor of pulling out. And the CIA was very worried about this and what happened if we lose Western Europe and how will we keep our mission in Afghanistan. And they wrote this secret memo, the CIA did, basically suggesting that the best hope to maintain support for the war in Afghanistan and Western Europe would be for how Barack Obama win in 2008, because then you replace this kind of evangelical, right-wing face of George Bush with a face much more palatable to the Western Europeans than Barack Obama. The policy doesn't change. The war in Afghanistan continues. But you have a new, fresh face who's now the kind of spokesperson for it in front of the world, and the world looks differently at it and says, oh, there's a new face there. There's a new voice that isn't yet unsullied. I don't know. It seems like if I were advising the Israelis, I would suggest that that might be a good policy, especially when you consider that a lot of Democrats now, for the first time, who are criticizing Israel, always go out of their way to do so by making clear that their problem is not Israel itself, but Netanyahu. You know, Bernie Sanders loves every speech. He says, no more weapons to Netanyahu, no more weapons to this far-right government of Netanyahu. It seems like there's benefits to getting rid of Netanyahu, even though the policy continues as is. Do you see those benefits?
No. I think if the policy continues as is, everybody will see that the policy is continuing, and they will be appalled, and there will be tremendous pressure on Western elites to shut the genocide down. I don't think you can fool people the way you're describing. Let me make 2 points about how I think the Israelis think about this issue. The first is, I think, and this is not completely inconsistent with what you were saying, and this is not to say you would agree with this, but I think they believe they can take over Western media in meaningful ways. They can buy up TikTok.
CBS News, CNN, Paramount.
Yes,
right.
Yes. God knows what will be left when they're done. But their basic view is they can control the discourse. And you want to remember, until the coming of the internet, they really did control the discourse in very important ways. But the discourse has gotten away from them. So they believe that they can rescue the situation by buying TikTok, CNN, you name it, okay? And the question you have to ask yourself is, do you think that will work? And I think that will backfire because so many people know what's happening. And there'll be alternative platforms anyway. But the second way they continue to do these things, despite all the criticism, is there's a deep-seated strain in Israel and in large portions of the American Jewish community that basically say, this is just good old-fashioned anti-Semitism. This is what you would expect. You get a war and they're blaming the Jews. What do you expect? And we just have to sort of hunker down and deal with that. It's been that way for thousands of years. Nothing has changed. But the most important thing is that we do what's best for us. And I think that's actually a quite powerful argument. I think it's dead wrong, and it's not an argument that should be made, but it is made, and it is quite effective. And it allows many Israelis and many American Jews to support these heinous policies.
Yeah, I have to tell you, whenever we cover this issue of Larry Ellison and the Ellison family and the pro-Israel lobby buying up all the media outlets, a lot of people are putting Barry Weiss in charge of CBS News. You know, these are like desperation moves. I mean, these are not even subtle. And I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I'm glad finally there's going to be some space in the American media that's not completely anti-Israel. And it's like, oh, yes, the American media has been notoriously controlled by Muslim and Arab voices who are fanatically opposed to Israel. And finally, there'll be some space in American corporate media where we have some ownership by people who are pro-Israel. Finally, after so many decades, that's what we're going to have. But I do want to just push a little bit on that because I too think that that's going to backfire. We don't have anymore a centralized system of information control the way we did, even 10 years ago, even with the advent of cable. It was still pretty centralized, much more so than now. At the same time, the internet is very vulnerable to a lot of censorship, to a lot of information control. And if it were just buying CBS News and buying Paramount, these kind of like dinosaur legacy media brands, I would say, this is a very obsolete strategy. But the U.S. Congress closed TikTok or forced a sale of TikTok precisely because they were so concerned that a lot of young Americans were getting too much information about Israel that they're not supposed to have. And now you have, TikTok in the hands of Larry Ellison and Trump's other allies who are all fanatically pro-Israel. Are you pretty confident that's not going to work?
Well, let's just unpack this a bit more. What's going on here, Glenn, is that Israel is more dependent on the United States for its security today than it has ever been in the past. In the beginning, Israel prided itself on being in a position where it provided for its own security. Yes, it might buy armaments from Czechoslovakia, France, or the United States, but Israel had these powerful military forces that could take care of themselves in wars against the Egyptians, the Syrians, the Jordanians, you name it. Those days are long gone. Israel is, and I'm not exaggerating here, super dependent on the United States for its security. It's really quite amazing. What that means is that anything that threatens the bond or anything that threatens the special relationship between the United States and Israel at this point in time is going to mortify Israel's strongest supporters in the West. And this is what's happening here. The lobby is scared stiff about what's happening to public opinion on Israel in the United States. And as you were saying before, it's not just in the Democratic Party, not just on the left-hand side of the political spectrum, it's on the right-hand side of the political spectrum as well. People like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens and Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk, of course, was moving in that direction as well. These people are hell on wheels for the lobby and for Israel. So the lobby has been forced out into the open in ways it was never in the past. It is out there for everybody to see, and it's engaged in plain smash mouth politics. It's shut down TikTok. It's buying up all these media outlets.
It forced on colleges and universities a whole wide array of rules that you'll be punished if you express any kind of criticism of Israel or prominent Jewish people or whomever. Just clamp down right in the open on the free speech rights of Americans on our colleges and universities in defense of this foreign country.
Exactly. They got 3 presidents fired. The president,
Ivy League presidents.
Ivy League presidents fired. This is truly remarkable. This is the greatest threat to free speech in the United States that I think we've ever seen. It's certainly the greatest threat to free speech on academic campuses. It's really quite remarkable. And it's largely due, not exclusively, but largely due to the lobby. And again, the question you want to ask yourself is, what's going on here? They weren't doing this 20 or 30 years ago. They're doing it now because Israel is in desperate straits. It's in desperate straits because it's not doing well against its adversaries, and it's heavily dependent on the United States. And there is some evidence that American support for Israel is withering away and may get worse with the passage of time. Because again, if we go back to the earlier part of our conversation, what you and I were effectively saying is that in all likelihood, we're of course hoping we're wrong here, but in all likelihood, the genocide is going to start up again. Well, if the genocide starts up again, this is just going to further wreck Israel's reputation in the West and around the world. This is a disastrous situation. And Israelis and American, not all American Jews, but some American Jews can say this is just anti-Semitism. But at a certain point, that argument becomes ridiculous. This isn't anti-Semitism. What the Israelis are doing in Gaza is absolutely horrific. And those people who oppose it are on the right side. So I think if this continues, the genocide continues, more damage will be done, and the lobby will be forced to behave in even more ruthless ways. And I think for the future of American liberal democracy, that is a big negative.
Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.